And good afternoon, Manitoba female U18 AAA Hockey League fans, and welcome to a brand new season of the MFHL podcast here on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. I'm your host, Graeme the G-Show Forsyth, and this year's edition of the MFHL podcast is going to be brought to you by our three sponsors from last year in McKenna Fasteners and Tools, Terraco, and Goaltenders. But as you can see in the top right corner, we have a new sponsor joining our team in Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. We'll be doing some work with them this season, producing some MFHL trading cards potentially. Actually, that is in the deal, so get excited for that. Going to be producing a commercial for them as well that we're currently in the middle of working on getting finished so we can start airing it. And yeah, exciting times around the G Show Productions network here, the G Show Productions family. Speaking of the MFHL's family, in the what I think is the biggest news from the offseason, they are adding a ninth team to the league in the Brandon Wheat Kings. They were approved by all 8 teams in the league on the board. And yeah, Brad Kirk, league president of the MFHL, says that the league is mandated to accept regions' requests for a team, but teams do also need to show that they have a foundation in place to field a team, and Brandon definitely does have that. They're going to be coached by and guided by Carissa Kirkup, head coach of the U15 AAA Wheat Kings female team from the past 2 seasons, guiding them to back-to-back championships, and pretty strong roster in terms of some of the players that have played in the MFHL going over to Brandon this season. It's going to be pretty interesting to see indeed how they fare this season in the league, and it changes up the playoff format a bit, as there'll now be a 9 versus 8 play-in best-of-3 series to see who faces off against the number 1 seed, and then playoffs start from there, how they have traditionally gone for as long as I can remember in the MFHL, where there's going to be 3 rounds of best-of-5 series before the winner of the league qualifies to play the winner of the Saskatchewan League in Regina this season, or not in Regina, but in Saskatchewan this season. It could very well be the Regina Rebels, as they should have a strong team again. But as for the MFHL, yeah, Brandon adding maybe even more parity to the league, as it was a very competitive MFHL last season. But there's also been change within coaching staffs this offseason in the MFHL, and one of those coaching changes come from the Central Plains Capitals U18 program, of course, in this U18 league. Ferdi Nelissen ends up taking that position. The new head coach of the Central Plains Capitals talks to me, as I had a conversation with him earlier today, about why he ended up taking the position this year's Central Plains Capitals team and the expectations he has for this group this year, and much more on episode 1 of season 2 of the MFHL podcast here on G Show Productions on gshow.ca. Ferdi Nelissen joining the show now. Ferdi Nelissen, head coach now of the Central Plains Capitals, the U18 female AAA program. Ferdi, last time we were on the show, we were talking about the league as a whole. Now we can't really do that. Maybe sometimes we will when you're on the show, but I'm going to be focusing strictly on your time with the Capitals this season. Let's start off with, I guess, the main question: how did it come to be for you to get back into coaching and take the head coaching position?
Well, I'd been with the U15s the last 2 years. Central Plains had asked me to come back and coach the U15 team because we wanted to get that program going again so it could feed the U18s a little bit better. And so it was sort of a natural progression to follow um, that group of players up to the U18 level. We were in search for a new coach, and they asked me if I was interested, and I thought about it for a bit, and I said, "Yeah, it was a good group to coach at U15, and I think we're heading in the right direction. We've increased the number of CP players on our U18 program to almost 60% this year. So instead of having to rely so much on imports, which we still do because we're small, but if we can keep growing that, like next year, I know the first years that I coached last year at U15, there's a good group there. We could even add more players from Central Plains and see where it ends up.
Yeah, and I mean, exciting to hear that hockey, the interest seems to be growing in the Central Plains area out in Portage. And yeah, it's one thing that I guess has been a struggle in the past is for these rural teams to be getting that type of homegrown talent, even though all the players in the league are from Manitoba, but getting players from their own area. For yourself, I mean, taking over for a group last year that course, finished last place in the standings. But like you said, optimistic about what's around Central Plains. Tell me about this year's roster and I guess the excitement around it.
Well, the excitement is we only have 3 graduating players. So for this year, I mean, so we're young, and that means there's lots of room for growth. We like the new players we brought in from Central Plains and from outside the region. The talent is good. There's still lots to work on getting our what we want out of the players and our systems and how to play the game on the right side of the puck. But we had one exhibition game against Interlake already. We won 3-1. I would not say that we necessarily deserved to win the game, but we found a way to win the game. So, we're going to be really solid in net, in my opinion, with Elise Dembo and Olivia May. I mean, I don't think Olivia got enough credit last year for what she contributed to the Caps. Like we all know that Elise Dembo is one of the top goalies in the league, but Olivia May last year was a solid backup and won some games for them. So I had her as a U15, and she's a hard-working, dedicated player, and I really like our goaltending. Our defense is young, so we got room to grow there. But I like their compete level and their willingness to be coached. Up front, I think we've got some speed, and we'll play an aggressive style of forecheck and make it hard for teams to play against us.
Yeah, and you mentioned Denbo, of course, top goaltender last year in the MFHL, and going to be interesting to see what Olivia May can do this season as well. But how huge is that, especially with a group that is so young that may not have the type of top end talent as the top teams in the league to have Elise, Denbo, and Olivia to fall back on this season?
Well, you and I both know goaltending can take you a long way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's something that every coach dreams of, is having solid goaltending. I mean, do we want to be good right from the net out? Absolutely. But if you can have somebody that gives you the opportunity to win every night, even when maybe you're struggling with the talent compared to, say, one of the top teams in the league like the Avros or Ice, or then you know what, if you never know what happens. It's one of those things. If you're in a tight hockey game, anything can happen. So goaltending tends to keep you in that, and we really feel comfortable and I'm very fortunate to be in the situation we are with our goaltending.
This team this season, like you said, you're gonna be younger, only 3 graduating players. Last time you coached at the U18 level, a part of, I guess, your legacy throughout your time as coaching was coaching a team to a championship in the MFHL in the Central Plains Capitals, and that team ends up going to the SO Cup.
Yeah.
Taken away from that experience, and I guess all the years that you have coached the U15 experience from the past 2 seasons, how do you say you've evolved as a coach at this point in time?
Well, when I first got into coaching AAA, I won't say I was a whole lot different than anybody else. You think you know it all, you think you have all the answers, and you don't. You have to be surrounded by good coaches and good staff, and you have to have a willingness to learn from people that are good hockey minds. I've been very fortunate over my tenure in Central Plains, whether it be U18 or U15 or any time leading up in minor hockey. I was surrounded by very good coaches, and they made me a better coach. If you're willing to have an open mind and know that the people that you've brought in to help you um, have that knowledge, have that skill, and reap the benefits of being flexible enough to understand that you could, even if you're the head coach, you can learn, and you surround yourself with good people, good things will happen. So I've always said that now that I'm an old coach. Um, it's never a sign of weakness to ask for help.
Right.
Too many young coaches think if they go out and ask for help, it's like they're admitting they're not good enough. No, it shows that you care, and it shows that you want to make improvements. And in Portage, very blessed to have a ton of great coaches come up through the age group that my daughter played, and as well as resources like uh, the guys that have, like, don't think I haven't bounced things off of Blake Spiller. Yeah, Spilly and I go way back. We were teammates in ball, and so you got a guy there that's one of the most successful coaches, not only in Manitoba but maybe in Canada, junior hockey. Well, hey, go watch his practices. Go watch what he does. Are your teams going to be able to execute quite as good as they do? No, but he runs great practices. He runs upbeat things. You can learn from those things, right? So have a willingness to learn from the people around you. And I've always said to now, I always say this: don't surround yourself with people that you think know less than you. If you can find coaches that you think know as much, if not more than you, that's not going to hurt you as a head coach. You still facilitate the program, but they help you, and especially the players get better, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and I think, another way of looking at it is like it's not just one player that's going to win you a game, right? In this team sport, that's the same way I guess to look at it with coaching is there's a coaching staff for a reason. It's a team, and the more you can have an open mind, the better. Like you said, Ferdy, I definitely do agree with that when talking about team sports, especially this one, hockey. But for this team heading into another season, only 38 goals for last season, gave up the most goals against in the league. Gave the Winnipeg Ice, some tough games in that first round of the playoffs, even though the Ice ended up sweeping them. But like you said, only three returning players, one of them being a key player in net, or three graduating players, that is, a key one being Elise Denbo. The expectations are, I guess, the goals you have coming into your first year with this group.
Well, I keep harping on the girls. We've been skating, and we've had, like I said, we've been practicing already. And for me, it's about showing up and competing and being a difficult team to play against. Do we think it's realistic that we're going to be one of the top three teams in the league? No, probably not. But like I say, you still got to step on the ice and play the game. And if you're willing to play it hard, compete, be on the right side of the puck, and do the little things right, you never know what happens. I don't think anybody had predicted Eastman to be a top three team last year.
Yeah.
We talk about that. So, but what did that team do? That team worked hard. They bought into their systems. They did the little things right. And the next thing you know, you get some goaltending. And we think we have a really great leadership group, spearheaded by Taylor Tarrant, and Elise Dembo. Like, I mean, those two are back, and uh, Lana Cipriano, and we got Ainsley Zubak as our leadership group. So, we think those players have character, and a lot of times what you need is those players to step up, and they always practice hard, they always play hard, they always take responsibility for their actions, and you're hoping that the younger players follow that lead. And I think we're in a pretty good situation that way, and I think we can get a little bit more scoring than we did last year, with some of the players we have returning, and some of the new players we have coming in. Like, if you can get to 3 goals a game in this league, you're probably going to be fairly successful. So that's just the one thing this team didn't do enough of last year, in my opinion, because I scouted the league the whole year. They didn't get the puck to the net enough. They're always looking for the perfect play.
Yeah.
Well, then you have a turnover. You know what? Get the puck to the net. Good things can happen if you get the puck to the net, especially if you're driving the net and looking for net presence. So we're going to have a philosophy of that, and hopefully the players buy in. But I've always said it: this team is only going to be as successful as we are in our own end.
Yeah.
I truly believe almost any team is only as successful as they are defending and then transitioning to offense from their own end. You can't take 4 or 5 kicks at the can to get out of your own end all the time. So if we can get really good in our own end, the rest should fall into place.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be my next question was like, even though you want to get more shots and more offense, like you said, it starts in your own end with, cleaning up the details there, having cleaner zone exits, spending less time in your own end. Is an aggressive style going to be on tap for this year's Central Plains team in both ends of the ice when we're talking about the forecheck and how this team's going to defend, or is it going to vary depending on which opponent you play?
I pretty well can tell you we're probably going to try and be very aggressive. Now, sometimes you have to adapt in the game. Like you can't only be stuck on one system or one forecheck or one, whatever. But I mean, at the end of the day, I would rather lose a game by being aggressive than laying back and let the other team dictate what they're doing and giving them time and space. Um, I think if we can buy into what we're coaching, I think we'll be a tough team to play against, and I'm hoping that that's because we're playing a hard-paced, aggressive style of hockey.
Yeah, and can't wait to see it this year. I believe we will have some Capitals games on our schedule that we're most likely going to be releasing either tomorrow or sometime this weekend on our social media pages, but as well as on our website. But Ferdy, coming up shortly for this team is going to be the Central Plains Capitals showcase. It's going to be a home showcase for your team. 13 teams coming in total. You told me before we started this interview. But yeah, the expectations, I guess, and what I guess, the big goal coming out of that weekend coming up.
Well, I think for us the big goal is to see where we're at against some different teams, right? To see where our pace is at, to see where we're lacking um, throughout the all three zones. If we're, what we've got to work on to become a competitive team. It's a preseason showcase. I mean, do you want to win a couple of games? Maybe even 3 or 4. Yeah, everybody gets 4 games. It's all full games, and for me, this is just about again developing the team, getting some team building, and starting to prepare for what are the really important games. I've watched too many times at the showcase because, like I said, I've run it for this is the 14th year, where people are already shortening their bench in September. Well,
Right.
there's no for me, there's no purpose in short. If you're running your power play or penalty kills, whatever, if you're starting to build on that. But if you're worried about the W in a preseason showcase more than you are developing your whole team and seeing where they're all at, and how you can help them based on what you've watched, I think you're taking it for the wrong. I think you're participating in it for the wrong reason. And there's no championship in our showcase. You
Yeah.
get 4 games and you go home.
Yeah.
Do you want to go undefeated? Well, most teams would like to, but at the end of the day, it's about finding out where you're at and getting prepared for the regular season. I don't think you watch the NHL or any top junior and think that they don't want to win the game. But a lot of times, those coaches have different lineups in there. They're trying different mixtures. They're trying to figure out what they're going to start the year with, and that's how we look at it. That's what we want, and it's a great way to start with 4 games. We play 2 games this weekend against Yellowhead, and that's always tough. I never take any team that Derek Tibbetts coaches lightly because you and I have talked about that before. Derek Tibbetts, in my opinion, is still one of the top coaches in this league. So when you go to play him, you better be prepared to coach, and your players better be prepared to play because they play a hard style of hockey.
Ferdi Nelissen joining this edition of the MFHL podcast for Season 2, Episode 1. It's brought to you by Goaltenders and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. For that interview with Ferdi, you'll be seeing more of Make Cannon Fasteners and Tools and Terrico in this next interview coming up. But yeah, for Central Plains, last season finished last place in the league, finished ninth or eighth, as I should say, last in both least goals against, or least goals for, and most goals against last season, with 38 goals for and about 98 against. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see Ferdi Nelissen, his philosophy, taking it into this U18 program and what type of impact that's going to have. Of course, the players need to play still, and he was bringing up how these coaches in the showcase at that Central Plains hosts and has for the last decade at that, and a bit more years plus. But saying that shortening the bench to try to win games, yeah, championships aren't won now, they're won at the end of the season. Maybe there's going to be some tournaments that teams want to win too, and sure, credit to them for maybe wanting to go for it all. But at the end of the day, you want all your players to play at this time of the year. In my opinion, it's how you get reps in and get ready for what should be a long regular season for all of these teams. And a regular season that's also probably going to fly by pretty fast. And I feel like before we know it, we're going to be saying goodbye to Rio Pierre in this league, as she'll be making her way over to play for Robert Morris University to play Colonias hockey for the 2026-2027 season, committing there this past weekend, as her Avros teammates and Pierre herself were in Hamilton to play at the Stony Creek U18 showcase. I had a chance to ask Rio about the commitment, the decision that went into it, as well as the past weekend at Stony Creek, touching back on a bit of last year, where this Avros team unfortunately collapsed against the Yellowhead Chiefs in a heartbreaking fashion, up 2-0 and losing in 5 games. You'll be pretty entertained by Rio's answer on that, and we also look ahead to this season and the expectations this Avros group has for themselves from a player point of view. You're watching the MFHL podcast here on G Show Productions on gshow.ca. Rio Pierre joining the show next. Rising star in the MFHL for the Winnipeg Avros. Stick with us, everybody. Number 9, Rio Pierre of the Winnipeg Avros joining this edition of the MFHL podcast. Rio, big announcement for yourself this past weekend. Huge news in your hockey future, committing to Robert Morris University to play hockey there for the 2026-2027 season. I guess the simplest question is why now, and why Robert Morris University?
Well, I reached out to them the day that I was eligible to reach out to them, and ever since then, like, we just clicked, and the coaches have just made the choice a lot easier for me. And in that moment, I just knew, like, that's where I want to be in 2 years, and that's the team I want to play for.
How long had those conversations or the thoughts of committing to Robert Morris University had been there for yourself?
Well, since June 25th, so about a month and a half, and I just knew that that's where I wanted to go, and that's where I wanted to be.
Well, they're going to get a really great player, and a player that still has 2 more years left in the MFHL. For yourself, you had an outstanding rookie season, 31 points in 28 games played. You led the Avros in every single offensive category in total games played, and yeah, finished tied second in league points last year with Ivy Perkin from the Westman Wildcats. Talk about what that first year was like, getting to not only play but succeed at the top level of U18 hockey in Manitoba.
Well, I started off, I just wanted to go in, have fun, and I loved the girls. They made it so much easier, especially our vets who unfortunately aren't playing with us this year. But I loved our vets so much. They made it so welcoming. And when I started playing, I was just having fun. And I feel when everyone plays fun hockey, that's when they reach their top level and play their best. And that's how I was playing last year. I had fun. The girls were nice. Ash was really good. I'm so thankful I have her for the next 2 years. And yeah, they just made it so much easier because when I play fun, I feel like I play my best hockey, and that goes for a lot of other players, I feel as well.
Yeah, and that's a great way of putting it, right? I mean, it's a game at the end of the day, so why not have fun while doing it? And for this team, like you said, you lose some players from last year's team heading into this year, but a good chunk of returning players, some good new additions. This team has already played 5 games already at the Stony Creek Showcase, as well as a game before against St. Mary's Hockey Academy. What's it been like to start off this season? Bonding and John with this group so far.
It's been really good. I really like having the Stony tournament because it makes our team become closer before a lot of other teams get that chance. And as like obviously there's room for developing, and I feel we still can develop more, but we did have a great weekend in Stony, and we started off strong the season again with beating SMA 3-1. And yeah, I feel like we just clicked right off the hop again, just like last year. And yeah, it's just been fun so far.
For yourself, it's going to be your second year into the league this year. Quite an experience last year with this Avros team. I mean, at one point near the top of the standings, and then finishing fourth after, kind of going on a bit of a downward spiral in terms of losing league games, up 2-0 against Yellowhead in the first round of the playoffs, and unable to close the deal, losing that series in 5. Obviously, a heartbreaking way to end one season. But what have you taken away from that compartmentalizing it during this off season as your time away from the Avs?
Well, if I'm being honest, that those games really pissed me off because we were up 2-0, and I felt that we definitely could have closed it out, but our team just thought we had it in the bag, and obviously that wasn't the case because we ended up losing the series. But it made me work way harder in the off season. I was going to the gym a lot more, and my mental game is just like the job's not finished until you actually finish it, until the final buzzer goes, till that final whistle blows, whatever it is. Like it's not over until it's over.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good mindset to have, and I think speaks a lot about the competitive side of yourself, knowing that, to quote your own words, it pissed you off losing, and I think it's going to be exciting to watch that fire under your belt, as well as all the other players returning from last year's team to try to, I guess, right the wrongs from last year. But I mean, a young team last year with, good returning players, but definitely a lot of experience heading into this year from last year. Do you feel like that may be an added bonus, knowing that there's so much motivation heading into this year, and that this team will not only use that as motivation, but also learn from last year potentially?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like a lot of us have learned from last year because there's a lot of cries at the end of the game, a lot of frustration, and I know I personally don't want to feel like that again this year. And I think that goes for a lot of others on the team. And the rookies, I feel, are just gonna like follow in our footsteps and, get mad, want to win, and just play hard.
For this group, yourself, you're coming back. Gonna have some really great players on that decor, including Abby West, who will be donning the C this year for the Avros. But in net, Maddie Sylvester and Anna Almeida both coming back. How much confidence does this give the group, knowing that you're getting one of the league's best goaltending tandems from last year back this year?
It Yeah, it's made me pretty confident because they're both very talented goaltenders, and if one's having an off game and the other happens to have to go in, I trust them completely to be dialed and play how they know how to play. Like just like last year when Mad Dog had to go in unexpectedly, she played lights out, really good. Same goes for Anna. I trust both of them completely, and I think our whole team does too. And I can't wait for them to have a really good season.
Yeah, and that's so huge to be able to have that type of confidence from knowing you have the right girls and the between the pipes backstop in this team. But last year's Avros team, from what I watched, played hard, trying to play physical brand of hockey as well as playing tactically well. Sometimes things would break down, but overall a very fun team to watch. How would you describe it this year's Winnipeg Avros team from what you've seen in this short season so far?
I feel we're basically the same as last year. Ash is coaching the same way, so we expect the same things. And tactically, we're doing really good. And the rookies picked up on the stuff that Ash has taught us in practices within such a short period of time, which is really good for them to have, just like the rookies last year had to do. And they did a really good job about it. And in Stony, I feel like we did really good on the tactical side of stuff. And the rookies had also played very good from learning with not that much time and not very many practices before Stony.
Yeah, and I mean, it's going to be exciting to see how everything gets put together this season. But for yourself, like you said, you worked really hard during this off season to get ready for this year coming up. What expectations, I guess, do you have for yourself coming off of a year in the regular season and your rookie year last year where you put up 10 goals, 21 assists for 31 points? I'm assuming maybe it's more goals, or is it something else for you personally?
Personally, I would like to get more goals and points, obviously, but I also really want to improve on my back end because last year that was my weakness, and I feel like during the summer I've been trying to like practice it more and just know where to be in spots in the defensive zone. And I feel like in Stony I did a pretty good job of that. So I'm expecting more out of myself in the defensive zone, and in the offensive zone, I want to put the puck in the back of the net and make some plays and help our team to get the victory.
Do you think it's, I guess, going back to the commitment to Robert Morris University, knowing that it's secured that you're going to have a spot on a D1 team, does it make you want to work that much harder, knowing that this is a prime 2 years remaining in your time in your minor hockey life to develop the best you can as a player?
Yes, I feel it's fueled me to work 10 times harder. And now there's not as much stress on about college and figuring out where I want to go because I know where I want to go because I've committed. And I feel I'm going to use these 2 years to develop as much as I can, work on the things that I need to, and get lots of feedback from Ash and even the coaches at RMU, and just try and become the best hockey player I can be before going to RMU.
Going to be exciting to watch yourself this year and what this Avers team can do. With so many returning players and the confidence you and the group has in each other, as well as the confidence the coaching staff has. I'm sure this team may be looking ahead or maybe not into hopes for a championship, but I guess how important do you feel this season will be for this team, given last year, to take things one game at a time and trying to stay in that mindset?
Oh, I feel like this series is going to be huge, and we just want to bounce back from last year because I know a lot of us are really mad and frustrated about what happened last year, and we just want to come back, win it this year, go game by game, try not to go on a losing streak again, and just be the best team that we can be, and hopefully get a championship out of it.
Well, like I said, and I've already said, going to be exciting to watch this year. The Winnipeg Avros opening up their season against the Winnipeg Ice in early October. Can't wait to be calling that game, as G Show Productions will be on location on that Wednesday at the Hockey for All Center. Until then, Rio and the Avros have a lot of hockey to be played until the regular season hits. Enjoy your time this season with the Avros, Rio, and once again, congratulations on the commitment. Thanks for joining the show.
Thank you.
And Rio Pierre joining this edition of the MFHL podcast for episode 1 in season 2, brought to you by McCann Fasteners and Tools, Terraco Goaltenders, and of course Cannes Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. And yeah, for Rio Pierre and the Robert Morris University Colonials, that could be, as they say, a match made in heaven when the time comes for them to play, for Rio to play in their organization, as I should say. But yeah, she lost out to top rookie last season in terms of that award to fellow rookie last season in Ivy Perkin. Of course, not playing on the same team, but being in the same birth year and in the same grade. Ivy, of course, played for the Westman Wildcats, and both these players, Pierre and Perkin, last season put up 31 points. Pierre had an unbelievable amount of points in terms of the total games she played last year, 69 points in 63 games played, and stacking up to the rest of her teammates. The only one that came close to her, but it wasn't even that close, to be honest with you, as Pierre almost had a 20-point gap on Mackenzie Lizotte, who had 48 points in 54 games played, to rank second on the Avros in total points last season. So it's going to be exciting to see what Pierre can do this season. Rio looked like she was years ahead of her time. Looked so experienced, so confident with the puck last year. And if she can become even better two-way, like she was talking about, really focusing on the awareness side of the game this off-season, focusing on her defensive positioning, that could make her an even better player, and I bet it will this year. But she has 3 points so far in 6 preseason games. Rookie Callie Lavalley leads the Avros in points in the preseason right now with 5 in 6 games. She's one of 4 new returning players to the Avros 17-girl roster this year, as they'll have 13 players returning, looking to avenge that loss against the Yellowhead Chiefs last year in the first round, and hey, maybe even looking to potentially go on an even bigger run than just making it past the first round this year. But yeah, that's about going to do it for this edition of the MFHL podcast. We're going to send it to a quick transition, and then I'll be back for some final words on season 2's premiere here on gshow.ca. Well, you made it to another edition, to another end of the MFHL podcast if you were here for season 1. Haven't said that in quite some time, but thank you for tuning in to this one this afternoon. If you enjoyed it, be sure to turn on notifications as well as subscribe here to the G Show Productions YouTube channel, as this is where every one of the MFHL podcast episodes will air first. We're currently sorting out getting our Spotify up and running, so episodes won't be going there yet, but at some point by the end of this weekend, I'm hoping to have that resolved and figured out. But yeah, we're gonna have the details for the next episode posted at the start of the week next week. That's what we're aiming for there, to get the promo out. So on Monday, we're going to have more great guests and more great content for that episode next week. And yeah, excited for this season to get going in the MFHL. I know that's something I've said a lot in this episode, but how can you be excited? The best female hockey league in the province for U18 players at the female side of things is finally back. Teams are, have made the final decisions on what their rosters are going to be this season. At this point, officially, And yeah, it's about playing those games and getting ready for what should be another very competitive season in the Manitoba Female U18 AAA Hockey League. Thank you to Ferdi Nelissen and Rio Pierre for joining this edition of the show and being the guest. Special thanks to Terrico, McKenna Fasters and Tools Goaltenders, and to Cannes Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia for being the official sponsors of this edition of the MFHL podcast. They'll be back next week, so will I. And like I said, we'll have more great content for you all next week with more great player and or coach interviews. But until then, I've been your host, Graeme the G Show Forsyth. Episode 1 of Season 2 of our MMJHL podcast comes out tomorrow. So if you're into the junior hockey side of things, you won't want to miss that premiere of that podcast in Season 2, as it'll come out at noon. But as for the Manitoba female hockey side of things, we'll see you next week on Thursday for another edition of what should be a great U18 Female Hockey League podcast. Take care, everybody.